It was 1:43 in the afternoon when everything changed. In the blistering heat of the Middle East, radar screens lit up across the Gulf region as Iran launched a sudden and calculated missile barrage toward a major United States air base. Within moments, alarms sounded, air defenses activated, and the world was once again pushed to the edge of a conflict that many feared could spiral out of control. This was not a drill. This was not a warning shot. This was a direct response, and it carried a message meant for Washington, for U.S. allies, and for the entire international community watching closely. According to regional military sources, Iran fired dozens of missiles in a coordinated strike designed to test American defenses and send a signal of strength without triggering immediate full-scale war. The missiles arced through the sky at hypersonic speeds, some intercepted mid-air by advanced defense systems, others continuing on their trajectory toward their intended targets. Inside the base, U.S. personnel moved swiftly to hardened shelters, following protocols that had been rehearsed countless times but rarely tested under real conditions. For Iran, this moment had been building for weeks. Tensions had been rising steadily after U.S. forces carried out precision strikes against key Iranian facilities earlier that month. Washington described those strikes as necessary, targeted, and defensive, aimed at preventing further destabilization in the region. Tehran saw them very differently. To Iranian leadership, the attacks represented a violation of sovereignty and a dangerous escalation that demanded a response. And that response arrived at 1:43 p.m. Missile defense systems engaged almost immediately. Patriot batteries and Allied interception platforms tracked incoming threats in real time. Bright flashes lit up the sky as interceptors collided with ballistic missiles, turning potential devastation into scattered debris. Within minutes, it became clear that while the base had been targeted, catastrophic damage had been avoided. No mass casualties were reported. Critical operations continued, albeit under heightened alert. But the real shock did not come from the missiles themselves. It came from what followed. Just 44 minutes later, reports began emerging that multiple Iranian facilities had been struck in rapid succession. Satellite imagery, regional intelligence leaks, and defense analysts all pointed to a coordinated counter-operation of extraordinary speed and precision. Facilities linked to missile storage, command and control, radar systems, and logistical hubs were reportedly hit almost simultaneously. The message was unmistakable. Retaliation would be immediate, overwhelming, and calculated. The speed of the response stunned observers. Military analysts emphasized that such a rapid turnaround required land target packages, real-time intelligence, and assets already positioned for immediate action. This was not improvisation. This was contingency planning activated in real time. Within less than an hour of Iran's missile launch, the balance of power narrative had shifted once again. Inside Iran, state media initially downplayed the damage, claiming that most facilities were evacuated and that losses were minimal. But independent imagery told a more complex story. Plumes of smoke rising from multiple locations, disrupted power grids, and emergency response convoys painted a picture of significant impact. Whether 16 facilities or fewer, the scale of the response was undeniable. Globally, markets reacted almost instantly. Oil prices spiked on fears that the conflict could threaten shipping lanes through the Strait of Hormuz. Airlines rerouted flights. Embassies issued security alerts. World leaders held emergency calls, attempting to prevent the situation from spiraling into a wider war that neither side publicly claimed to want. Behind the scenes, diplomatic channels were working overtime. Messages were passed through intermediaries. Red lines were quietly communicated. Both sides appeared to be walking a tightrope, demonstrating strength while trying to avoid a point of no return. This was modern warfare in its most dangerous form: fast, precise, and politically charged. For the United States, the incident reinforced the vulnerability of even the most fortified overseas bases. While defenses performed as designed, the fact remained that a regional power had successfully launched missiles toward a key American installation. That reality prompted immediate reviews of force posture, defensive coverage, and regional deployment strategies. For Iran, the strike served domestic and strategic purposes. It allowed leadership to project defiance and capability to its population, while avoiding mass casualties that could justify an overwhelming response. It was a show of force wrapped in restraint, a calculated gamble that the message would land without igniting an uncontrollable firestorm. The psychological impact may ultimately prove more significant than the physical damage. Military planners across the world took note of how quickly events unfolded, how little warning separated escalation from retaliation, and how thin the margin for error had become. In an era of high-speed weapons and instant communication, decisions measured in minutes can alter history. As night fell, the immediate exchange appeared to pause. No further missile launches were reported. No additional strikes confirmed, but the silence carried its own weight. It was the uneasy quiet that follows a near-miss, when both sides reassess, recalibrate, and decide what comes next. Analysts debated whether this marked the peak of the confrontation or merely a prelude. Some argued that deterrence had been reestablished, that both sides had demonstrated capability and resolve and would now step back. Others warned that the underlying issues remained unresolved, and that future incidents could unfold even faster and with greater consequences. What is certain is that this day will be studied in military academies and diplomatic circles for years to come. The sequence of actions, the speed of retaliation, and the restraint shown under extreme pressure offer critical lessons about conflict in the modern age. It showed how quickly the world can move from tension to impact, and how fragile stability can be when powerful nations test each other's limits. For ordinary people watching from afar, the events of that afternoon were a stark reminder that global security is not an abstract concept. It is shaped by real decisions, made by real people, under immense pressure, with consequences that ripple far beyond any single battlefield. As the dust settled and statements were issued, one truth became clear. This was not just about missiles and bases. It was about power, perception, and the constant struggle to maintain balance in a world where a single moment at 1:43 p.m. can change everything. And while the missiles stopped flying that day, the questions they raised continue to echo. How close did the world come to something far worse? What deterrents truly work in an age of instant retaliation? And how many more such moments can the global system endure before one finally goes too far? The answers remain uncertain, but one thing is undeniable. That afternoon, in less than an hour, the world was reminded just how thin the line between restraint and disaster truly is.